Sage Langford was the perfect wife until she died. 10 years into a cold marriage, she uncovered the ultimate betrayal. Her husband, Russet Greaves, had a mistress for 12 years and even conspired for her to lose her baby, replacing her child with the son of his lover. Heartbroken and powerless, Sage's life ends in tragedy, but fate gives her a second chance. Sage wakes up 6 months before the wedding, back when she was still the golden daughter of the Langford family. This time, she's not here to love, she's here to ruin Russet, his mistress, and everyone who played a role in her suffering. And she'll do it with charm, power, and a perfectly executed plan. Chapter 1. Back to the beginning. The sterile scent of hospital-grade disinfectant clung to Sage Langford's lungs, but it wasn't the kind of air she remembered from 10 minutes ago, because 10 minutes ago, she had been dead. Or so she thought. Her fingers twitched, her eyes opened, and she expected cold metal, blinking monitors, or maybe a toe tag. But instead, she was staring at her old bedroom ceiling painted in that soft ivory color her stepmother Ruby insisted on during their 2015 home remodel. 2015? She bolted upright. The sheets were silky. Her hair smelled of vanilla and gardenia shampoo, which she hadn't used in over a decade. Her reflection caught in the mirror across the room, no fine lines, no tired eyes. Her 26-year-old self blinked back at her. No, 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 she whispered. She scrambled toward the closet, nearly tripping on the corner of the rug, and tore it open. Hanging inside was the pale blue satin dress, the one she wore to the Langford Foundation's summer gala the night Russet Greaves proposed. The date on the invitation lying neatly on her vanity confirmed it, June 2, 2015. She fell to her knees. Sage Langford had died at 36, after 10 years of a miserable, manipulative marriage. She had discovered the truth too late, that her husband Russet had never loved her. He had used her family's name, money, and influence to climb into the world he could never reach on his own. He fathered a child, not with her, but with Myrtle Sullivan, the woman who posed as a friend, the woman who had been in his life longer than she had. They stole everything, her heart, her inheritance, her baby. Sage had died cold and alone, clutching a letter from her brother Top that she never opened. But now, she was here again, before it all. Before the engagement, before she handed Russet her whole life on a silver platter. And this time, she would never let it happen again. Later that morning, Sage stood at the top of the staircase in Langford Estate, a mansion nestled in the hills just outside downtown Seattle. The dining room below buzzed with polite laughter. Ruby Langford, ever graceful in pearls and crisp linen, sipped her grapefruit mimosa and eyed the breakfast spread like a boardroom asset. "Sage," Ruby called up. "You're late, darling." Sage blinked down at her. Her stepmother still had that ice-cold elegance Sage had once mistaken for maternal affection. "I needed a moment to collect myself," Sage said as she descended the stairs. When she reached the bottom step, Ruby reached over and brushed her cheek. "Big night tonight," she said, voice like glass. "Try not to embarrass us," Sage smirked. "Too late for that. Just wait until tonight, Ruby." She sat across from Top Langford, her older brother, sharp-jawed and perpetually annoyed. In the past, she had ignored every warning he ever gave her. This time, she'd listen. Top looked up from his phone. "You okay?" Sage's voice was light. "Never better." Later, at the Langford Foundation's annual summer gala, Sage floated through the crowd in her blue satin dress, every inch the perfect daughter. Laughter, toasts, a string quartet. It was all so familiar because she had lived this night before. And she knew what was coming. Russet Greaves stood near the champagne table, in his discount-tailored suit and eager smile. His dark hair was slicked back, and his brown eyes scanned the room until they found her. God, she remembered how those eyes used to make her heart race. Now they made her sick. He walked over, carrying two glasses. "You look stunning. You always say the right thing," she replied smoothly, but inside she was counting the hours until she could crush him. He handed her the glass, his fingers brushing hers. "Let's go somewhere quieter." In the past, this was the moment he proposed in the Langford garden. She had said yes, like a fool, and the flash of a hidden camera in the bushes sealed her fate. Their engagement trended on Seattle society blogs within minutes. Not this time. Sage took the glass but didn't sip. Instead, she turned and smiled at the crowd. "Why don't we stay? I'd hate to miss the speeches." Russet blinked. "You hate speeches. People change." He tilted his head. "You've been acting strange all week." "Oh, She feigned surprise. You'd be surprised what a good night's sleep can do. Russet laughed, charmed. He still thinks he has me, she thought. But Sage's eyes flickered past him to the far end of the ballroom. There she was, Myrtle Sullivan, in her champagne-colored gown, laughing with a group of lawyers from Russet's firm. Of course, she was here. In the past, Sage didn't know Myrtle yet. They were introduced 2 months after the engagement. But now she knew everything. Myrtle was the puppet master. Sage was just the fool on stage. Not anymore. She made her way to Myrtle with purpose, Russet trailing behind her like a dog. Hi, Sage said sweetly, interrupting the conversation. We haven't met. I'm Sage. Myrtle turned, her expression poised. Myrtle Sullivan. I know. I've heard so much about you. Myrtle gave her a polite but puzzled look. Oh. Sage took a sip of champagne and leaned in slightly. Russet mentioned you once. Said you were practically like family. Russet stiffened beside her. Myrtle blinked. Sage smiled. Isn't that sweet? Myrtle recovered quickly. We've known each other for a long time, I figured. You seem comfortable. Russet interjected. Sage, can we? Sage turned to him, eyes cold behind her charm. You should mingle, sweetheart. Myrtle and I have so much to talk about. Before Russet could protest, Sage hooked her arm through Myrtle's and guided her toward the courtyard. The courtyard was empty, the night air cool, the perfect place for revelations. Sage let go of Myrtle's arm and turned to face her. You've been sleeping with Russet for what, 12 years now? Myrtle's jaw dropped. Excuse me? Oh, don't play dumb. Not tonight. You're not nearly as clever as you think. Myrtle's expression hardened. What exactly are you insinuating? I'm not insinuating anything. I'm stating facts. I know everything. The hotel receipts, the fake work trips, the matching bracelets from Aspen, the burner phone hidden in his desk. I know it all. Myrtle opened her mouth, then closed it. Sage stepped forward, her voice low. I died because of you, because of him, but I'm not dead now. I'm here. And this time, I'm the one holding the knife. You're insane. Not yet. But keep pushing me. Myrtle turned to leave. Sage called after her. By the way, do tell Russet the proposal's off. Myrtle froze. Sage's voice dropped, filled with sweet venom. Tell him he can keep the ring. Pawn it, burn it, choke on it. Just make sure he knows this time. He marries no one. Back inside, Russet waited in the foyer, ring box in hand. A photographer already positioned near the staircase. Sage approached slowly, her smile dazzling. He dropped to one knee. Sage Langford, will you know? The room gasped. Sage leaned down, whispered in his ear. You married me for money. Now I'm rich without you. She turned, walked past the stunned crowd, and out into the night air, heels clicking like war drums. Chapter 2. The perfect fiancé is a liar. Sage sat at her vanity the next morning, brushing her hair with deliberate calm. Her reflection looked peaceful, but her heart was anything but. She had ruined Russet's public proposal in front of Seattle's elite, and she was just getting started. Behind her, Ruby stormed into the room without knocking, her voice clipped. What the hell was that last night? Sage paused mid-stroke. You'll have to be more specific. There were so many scenes to choose from. Ruby crossed her arms. Do you know how much money we poured into that event? How many hands do I have to shake to secure Russet's future with our family name? That was your mistake, Sage said, standing. Attaching our legacy to his. You're acting erratic. Sage turned slowly, her expression serene. No, Ruby, I'm finally acting sane. Downstairs, Top leaned on the kitchen counter, sipping black coffee. He looked up as Sage entered, raising a brow. You did it, she shrugged, grabbing a glass of orange juice. I'm not marrying him. I've been telling you that for years. Top tilted his head. What finally opened your eyes? You drugged me. You made me lose my baby. You lied to me for 10 years. But all Sage said was, a gut feeling. He narrowed his eyes. You sure you're okay? Sage smiled. No, but I'm done pretending. Later that afternoon, Sage strolled through Westlake Center in downtown Seattle. She wore dark sunglasses and a beige trench coat not because she needed to hide, but because she wanted to look like the woman she was becoming, untouchable, composed, and in control. She stepped into a boutique cafe and found her seat by the window. 5 minutes later, Red Rivers walked in. His presence was calm, like a breeze before a thunderstorm. Slightly older, in his early 30s, with smart eyes and quiet intensity. He was one of the few people her mother trusted before she passed. And now, Sage would trust him too. I got your message, he said, sliding into the booth. You okay? That depends. How do you feel about spying on Russet Greaves? Red blinked. I thought you two were getting married. Sage took a sip of tea. That was the plan. Until I realized the groom had been living a double life for over a decade. Red studied her. How much do you know? Enough to destroy him. But I want everything. And I need someone who can dig where I can't. He leaned forward. If you're serious, I'll help you. But I want to know why now. Sage met his gaze. Because I wasted 10 years of my life on a man who never loved me. And I've decided to make every single day moving forward count toward making sure he regrets it. Red sat back, slowly nodding. All right, Langford, let's burn the bastard. Meanwhile, Russet paced in his office, the ring box still in his coat pocket. His career, built on borrowed charm and Langford money, was suddenly hanging by a thread. He grabbed his phone and called Myrtle. She answered on the second ring. You said you'd handle her. I was handling her. Then she flipped the damn script on me. You told me she was in love with you. She was. I don't know what changed. Myrtle exhaled sharply. She threatened me last night, told me she knows everything. Russet sat down hard. That's not possible. She mentioned Aspen, the hotel, the burner phone. Russet's blood ran cold. I never told her those details. Well, someone did, Myrtle hissed. And if she knows that much, we're both screwed. There was a long pause. Then Myrtle's voice dropped. You need to win her back, fast. Sage already knew Russet would come crawling. Predictable men always did. So when he showed up at her family's estate that evening with flowers and that charming, rehearsed apology smile, Sage was ready. He handed her a bouquet of lilies, her least favorite. Sage, I made a mistake. I got overwhelmed. I let things get messy. But I love you. Sage's smile was syrupy sweet. Do you? Or do you love what my last name gets you? Russet frowned. You're not being fair. No, she said, stepping closer, voice low. You weren't being fair. Sleeping with Myrtle behind my back for 12 years while pretending to be the man I was meant to marry? That's not just unfair, Russet. That's psychopathic. He flinched. She means nothing to me. Then why did you give her a child? His mouth opened and then closed. Sage gave a tight laugh. Didn't think I'd find out, did you? Sage, please. I can explain. She stepped back. Save it for someone stupid enough to listen. She slammed the door. Later that night, Sage opened the encrypted file Red had sent her. Financial documents, law firm payoffs, private messages, receipts, everything Russet thought he'd buried. But most telling of all were the prenup revisions Russet had been drafting with Ruby's help. In the past, Sage had never signed a prenup, but in this timeline, they'd planned to coerce her just before the wedding. Everything was a con. She leaned back in her chair, fingers trembling. Her own family had helped him trap her. She picked up her phone and texted Top. Do you trust Ruby? Seconds later, Top. Not for a damn second. Why? Sage. Because I think she sold me out to Russet. And I think I finally have proof. The next morning, Ruby entered the dining room and found Sage calmly eating waffles. Did you sleep well? Ruby asked, eyeing her with a guarded smile. Like the dead, Sage said flatly. Ruby froze for half a second. Sage saw it. Sage folded her napkin. I have a question. Go on. Why was Russet's name added as a trustee on the Langford Foundation charter last month? Ruby's eyes narrowed. Where did you hear that? Sage leaned forward. I asked you a question. Ruby gave a dry smile. I did what was best for the family. No, Sage whispered. You did what was best for you. Ruby stood. You don't understand how these things work. No, I finally do. And from now on, I'm in control. Chapter 3. A mistress in disguise. 3 weeks passed. Sage had carefully retreated from society's spotlight, but she wasn't hiding, she was calculating. Every move she made was designed to appear like healing, while she laid the groundwork to expose everyone who had betrayed her. Ruby, Russet, Myrtle, all of them. The headlines had quieted, though whispers remained. Langford heiress calls off engagement. Was it cold feet or a cheating fiancé? Seattle's most eligible bachelor back on the market? Sage didn't care. Let the press speculate. They'd soon have more than enough to write about. She stood in front of the mirror at her downtown apartment, her haven, a sleek penthouse high above Pike Place Market, wearing a dark aubergine wrap dress, her hair in a soft chignon. She looked elegant and anonymous. Gone was the docile Langford bride-to-be. Now, she wore power like perfume. Red's voice buzzed through her earpiece. She's there. Table by the window. Alone. Sage slipped on her sunglasses and replied coolly, "Time to meet my new best friend." Myrtle Sullivan sat at a cafe on Capitol Hill, sipping her oat milk latte, scanning a manuscript from the law firm she worked at as an executive liaison, a title Russet had bought her. She looked ordinary. Expensive blouse, subtle makeup, hair to perfect. But Sage knew the truth. Beneath the curated poise was a woman who had clawed her way into high society through deceit, manipulation, and a man she never should have touched. Sage approached her with a smile as warm as sunlight. "Excuse me, are you Myrtle?" Myrtle looked up, surprised. "Yes?" Sage slipped into the chair across from her. "You don't know me, but I've been following your work with the Holbrook Legal Foundation. Your charity outreach is impressive." Myrtle's lips curved into a modest smile. "Oh, thank you. I wasn't aware people outside the circle noticed." "Oh, I notice everything." Sage offered her hand. "I'm Vanessa Hartwell. I'm with the Kensington Trust. A fake name, a fake foundation. But the paperwork, website, and background Red had built for her were flawless. We're vetting potential collaborators for an upcoming grant. I'd love to hear more about your work." Myrtle's eyes lit up. Her mask slipped just enough. She saw a networking opportunity, a name that could mean power. She smiled. Of course, over the next few days, Vanessa and Myrtle met twice, once at an art gala, then again at a yoga brunch on Lake Union. Sage played her part flawlessly. She complimented Myrtle's intelligence, asked her questions about her goals, pretended to admire her poise, and Myrtle, oblivious to the trap, began to open up. "I don't come from money," Myrtle had said during their walk around Russet Lake, "so I've always had to work twice as hard. People like Sage Langford, they have everything handed to them." Sage's smile never wavered, and yet she still managed to fumble a fiancé like Russet. "Tragic," Myrtle snorted. She didn't know how to keep him. Sage tilted her head. "But you do?" Myrtle blinked, then gave a sly smile. "Let's just say I understand Russet in ways she never could." "You don't," Sage thought. That night, Sage met Red in his office. "She's smug," she told him, tossing her coat onto the chair. "And sloppy." Red leaned back in his chair. "You're enjoying this. She deserves worse." He slid a folder toward her. "You were right. Myrtle wasn't just Russet's mistress, she's also been laundering money through a shell company linked to Ruby." Sage's breath hitched. "Ruby's helping her?" "Looks that way. They've been transferring small amounts in and out of a dormant Langford charity. And guess what? That money paid for the penthouse Myrtle's been living in for the past 5 years." Sage clenched her fists. "They use my family's charity to fund her lifestyle?" Red nodded. "It's all here. We have proof." Sage smiled coldly. "Perfect. Let's give her something she won't be able to explain away." At their next meeting, Myrtle seemed nervous. "I don't want to overstep," she said as she stirred her drink, "but I may have an inside connection who could help you get access to Russet Greaves. He's very well connected." Sage laughed. "That won't be necessary." Myrtle blinked. "Why not?" Sage's eyes glittered. "Because I already have access to him." She leaned closer, dropped her voice an octave. "Actually, I know everything." Myrtle stiffened. "What are you talking about?" Sage reached into her purse and laid a familiar bracelet on the table, one Myrtle had lost 2 years into her affair, and that Sage had found buried in Russet's desk drawer. "Funny, isn't it?" she said sweetly. "How things come full circle." Myrtle's mouth fell open. Sage pulled off her sunglasses. Myrtle whispered, "Sage?" Surprise. Myrtle shot up from the table, eyes wide. "This is insane, sit," Sage ordered, voice sharp enough to cut glass. Myrtle sat. "You called me weak. You said I fumbled Russet. Let me clarify something. I gave him to you. I let you have him. You know why? Because trash belongs with trash. You tricked me." Sage laughed. "You slept with my fiancé for over a decade, and I tricked you? Sweetheart, this is karma doing its makeup in the mirror." Myrtle's hands trembled. "What do you want?" "I want you to choke on everything you stole. I want Russet ruined. I want you crawling back to whatever alley he pulled you out of." Sage slid a folder across the table. "Inside are wire transfer records, tax evasion files, and a copy of the lease your penthouse was paid for with, all funded illegally through my family's trust." Myrtle flipped it open. Her face went pale. "If I submit this to the IRS," Sage said, "you'll lose everything." Myrtle's voice was barely a whisper. "You wouldn't." Sage stood and leaned in close. "Oh, honey, I already did." That night, Sage watched from her penthouse window as the lights in Myrtle's apartment flickered off. The next morning, movers would arrive. The day after that, an IRS auditor. And by the end of the week, Myrtle Sullivan would be the newest pariah in Seattle's legal circles. She had humiliated Sage for years. Now, Sage returned the favor. Her phone buzzed. Read, "Myrtle's officially under investigation." The foundation fraud was enough to flag her accounts. "She's going to flip," Sage replied. "Let her." Russet's next, Chapter 4. A brother's warning. The Langford estate had never looked so small. Sage used to think of it as a fortress, a symbol of her family's status, of tradition, of everything they built. But now, it was just a house full of secrets, brick and betrayal. She stood in the study, staring at a portrait of her late father. His painted eyes, calm, unreadable, watched her from above the fireplace. "I'm going to clean this house out, Dad," she whispered. "And I'm starting today." Behind her, the door creaked open. "I heard Myrtle Sullivan is being audited," Top said, stepping inside with 2 mugs of coffee. "Care to explain why the feds were sniffing around her apartment this morning?" Sage took a mug, sipped slowly. She had some discrepancies in her financials. "Discrepancies?" Top echoed. "You're 3 steps away from a RICO charge, sis." Sage shrugged. "I'm not doing anything illegal." Top arched a brow. "Yet." She turned to face him. "You always said Russet was no good." "I was right. I should have listened." Top let out a long breath and sat on the couch. "Why now, though? What changed?" "You were obsessed with him." Sage sat across from him, meeting his gaze. Her voice lowered. "I found out everything, Top. All of it. The affairs, the child, the lies. Ruby is helping him rewrite trust documents. The fake prenup they were going to shove in my face before the wedding." Top's face went still. "Wait, Ruby helped him?" Sage nodded. "She's been laundering money through a Langford charity and funneling it to Myrtle. That penthouse Myrtle lived in, we paid for it." Top's jaw clenched. "I always knew Ruby was slippery. But this? She's practically part of the scam. I need you to help me get into the Langford Holdings boardroom," Sage said. "I want access to the documents Ruby has hidden." "She'll never approve that." "She won't have to. You're the CEO. Make it happen." Top smirked. "I like this new you." "You haven't met all of her yet," Sage said darkly. "But you will." The next day, Ruby entered the Langford Holdings tower in her usual pristine cream coat, heels echoing through the polished marble lobby. She didn't expect to see Sage waiting in the boardroom with Top and 3 senior partners. "Sage," Ruby said, voice cool. "Why are you here?" Sage stood, her tone icy. "We need to go over some discrepancies in the charitable ledgers." Ruby blinked. "I wasn't informed of any review." Top gestured to the stack of files on the table. "You are now." Ruby's eyes narrowed. "What's the meaning of this?" Sage slid a document forward. "This shows a recurring transfer from the Langford Literacy Fund to a company called TMA Logistics. You signed off on it." Ruby's voice sharpened. "It was a vendor contract. TMA Logistics," Sage said, "has no website, no listed phone, and the only employee on record is Myrtle Sullivan." Silence. Ruby looked between them. "You went through my files?" Sage leaned in. "Correction. We went through our files. You've been embezzling from my father's legacy." Ruby's jaw trembled. "You don't have proof." "We do," Top cut in. "And we've already submitted it to the ethics committee." Sage added, "Your seat on the board is gone. You'll step down quietly, or we'll go public." Ruby's eyes were glassy. "You're destroying your own family." "No," Sage said, rising. "You destroyed it the day you chose Russet over me." Ruby was escorted from the boardroom in silence. As soon as the doors closed, Top turned to Sage. "That was brutal. She deserved worse." "You're terrifying," he said, half impressed. "Dad would have been proud." Sage looked down at the old Langford Foundation stamp on the file. "I'm not done yet." Meanwhile, Russet was unraveling. His law firm had put him on probation, citing ethical concerns related to his associations. Clients were pulling out. Myrtle had cut off contact. His apartment paid for through shady deals was under review. And worst of all, Sage Langford had disappeared from his grip like smoke. He stared at a photo on his desk, one from their early days. Sage smiling, leaning into him. Back when she still believed he was someone worth loving. He grabbed his phone and called her. No answer. He called again, and again. Finally, she picked up. "Sage," he breathed, "I need to see you." She waited 5 seconds before answering, her voice flat. "Why?" "I messed up. I know that, but I want to fix it." she chuckled. You can't fix something you broke on purpose. I'm still the man you fell in love with. No, Russet, she said. You're the man I fell for before I knew who I was. Click. He stared at the deadline. That evening, Sage sat on the rooftop of Red's office building, the Seattle skyline glowing behind her. Red handed her a drink. Ruby's resignation is being processed. Her lawyers are scrambling. Good. Are you okay? No, Sage looked at the city. But I'm getting stronger. Red watched her for a beat. What's your endgame? She turned to him slowly. To make him wish he'd never met me, and to make sure no one uses me again. Chapter 5. My sponsor, my spy. Sage Langford walked through the quiet halls of the Langford Foundation's archival wing, each step echoing on polished stone like a countdown. The room was cold, silent, and untouched, just like the part of her life she was finally ready to confront. She had spent years believing she fell in love with Russet Greaves because of fate. Now, she knew better. Russet hadn't just fallen into her world. He had been placed in it, sponsored, shaped, and slipped into her path like a loaded die. Red met her by the filing cabinets, a manila folder already in his hand. You were right, he said. It wasn't your father who approved Russet's sponsorship. It was Ruby. Sage blinked. What? Red opened the folder. Inside were scanned memos, email printouts, and old financial ledgers. One stood out, a signed approval from Ruby Langford, dated 2 months before Russet entered Columbia Law on a full ride funded by the Langford Foundation. Your father had no idea, Red continued. She disguised it under an initiative for underprivileged scholars. But Russet was handpicked, groomed. He was never some accidental love story. Ruby orchestrated it all. Sage felt a chill settle in her bones. She built him for me. More like she built him for herself. Once you married him, she could consolidate control over both you and the estate. Sage stared down at the memo. Ruby's perfect signature set like poison ink across the page. 10 years of marriage, 10 years of lies, and all this time, it had started long before the engagement, before the proposal, before the affair. I want this buried in the public records, Sage said quietly. Let the media know the golden boy had a fairy godmother with a forged wand. Red gave a slow smile. Consider it done. The next day, the whispers started. An anonymous tip, a leaked memo. Suddenly, Russet's image as the self-made attorney from the wrong side of the tracks crumbled. News blogs speculated that his rise wasn't as organic as he'd claimed, that his entire success was staged. He paced his condo, now half-packed with moving boxes. Myrtle was gone. His career was hanging by a thread. And now, his past was eating him alive. He opened his laptop and saw the headline, Langford Foundation whistleblower alleges nepotism in top sponsorship pick. There was a side-by-side photo of Sage at a charity gala, radiant and powerful. The other of Russet with dark circles under his eyes, clearly taken without his consent. The caption read, once Seattle's power couple, now estranged enemies. His phone rang. It was his last client. Russet, the voice said, we're going with a new firm. Click. Red and Sage sat across from each other at a quiet jazz bar in Belltown. He's bleeding, Red said. And Myrtle tried to flee to Vancouver. She was stopped at the border. Sage swirled her drink. You know what the best part is? Red raised a brow. He still thinks this is just bad luck. Like the world turned on him randomly. Red smirked. You never really loved him, did you? Sage paused. I loved who I thought he was. That version of him never existed. A moment of silence stretched between them. Then Red leaned forward. I found something else. He placed another file on the table. Sage opened it slowly and froze. Inside were photographs. A grainy surveillance still. A wire transfer. A clinic record. Sage swallowed. This is the clinic where I lost the baby. Red nodded. And that man, he pointed to the photo, was seen entering the facility 2 days before your miscarriage. Paid in cash from an account under Myrtle's name. Sage's hand shook. They made sure I would lose that baby. Red reached across the table. Sage, we can take this to court, to the police. She looked up, eyes glassy but hard. No, not yet. I want him to suffer first. The legal system is justice. I want revenge. Red nodded. Then we do it your way. The next morning, Sage sent Russet a message. Sage, meet me at Langley Park. Noon, no lawyers, just you and me. He arrived early, desperate, disheveled. Sage appeared minutes later in a white pantsuit, hair slicked into a sharp ponytail. She looked like vengeance dressed in designer. He opened his mouth to speak. She held up a hand. Save it. She tossed him a folder. He opened it and went pale. Inside were photos, records, payments, and statements. Proof of everything. You set me up, he whispered. No, she said. You set yourself up. I just gave you the spotlight. He looked up at her, broken. What do you want from me? I want you to disappear, quietly, or I will make this folder public, and you will spend the rest of your life rotting in a courtroom. You loved me once, he said, almost pleading. She leaned in, voice sharp. I loved the lie. Now I love the silence that follows your absence. Then she turned and walked away, heels clicking like a gavel. And Russet? He just stood there, staring at the ashes of the empire he tried to build off her name. Chapter 6. Let the wedding plans burn. The Langford estate was buzzing. Ruby was gone. The boardroom had been cleansed. And now, Sage was the sole heir, not only to the Langford name, but to its future. But power, she quickly learned, wasn't about titles. It was about control. And she wasn't just planning to destroy Russet, she wanted to publicly unmask him in the very halls where he was once celebrated. She wanted witnesses. So Sage resurrected an old idea, the annual Langford Charity Gala. This time, it would be hosted not by her father nor by Ruby, but by her. And Russet? He was going to receive an invitation he wouldn't dare decline. Are you sure this is smart? Top asked as he reviewed the guest list over her shoulder. It's strategic, Sage replied. Russet still thinks he can repair his public image. He won't miss this gala. It's the only stage left for him to pretend he matters. Top smirked. And you're going to burn it down. Down to the ashes, she confirmed. 3 nights later, the ballroom at the Edgewater Hotel shimmered with warm lighting, gold accents, and soft jazz floating through the air. Sage had never looked more poised. Draped in a crimson backless gown, her hair slicked into a vintage roll, she didn't just command attention, she demanded it. Red stood near the bar, watching her from a distance. He had always admired Sage's grace, but tonight, she looked more than graceful. She looked lethal. Target acquired, he whispered into his phone. Across the room, Russet walked in. He was thinner now, darker beneath the eyes, and carried the scent of desperation. Still, he wore a confident mask, the charming, wronged man clawing his way back. Sage turned at the perfect moment, locking eyes with him. She didn't flinch. A photographer snapped the moment. History would remember this night. Sage waited until dinner had been served, until the guests had drunk enough champagne to soften their whispers but not enough to lose clarity. She stood and took the microphone. Good evening, she began. Thank you for joining me tonight. The Langford Foundation was built on a legacy. And legacy, I've learned, is not just about inheritance, it's about integrity. She paused, letting the room be quiet. Some of you may know that I recently ended a long engagement. A few murmurs. Russet stiffened. It was the hardest decision I've ever made, she continued. Because when you love someone, truly love them, you believe their lies. You justify their betrayals. You sacrifice your future because you think they're your destiny. She looked straight at Russet. But sometimes, she said, her voice sharpening, you wake up and realize the person beside you was never building a life with you. They were building a ladder on your back. Gasps. Russet went pale. Sage turned to the crowd. Tonight, I want to introduce someone who embodies what the Langford Foundation should stand for: transparency, resilience, and a future earned with honesty. Red Rivers, please join me. Red walked on stage to a wave of polite applause, shaking Sage's hand before stepping to the side. Sage continued. Red will be our new director of outreach. And together, we will rebuild the integrity that others tried to quietly dismantle behind closed doors. She turned to Russet one last time. If you ever loved me, she said, voice soft enough only he could hear, you'll walk out now. Before I make public everything else you've done. Russet hesitated. The entire room was watching him. He stood and left. The moment the doors closed behind him, applause erupted. But Sage didn't smile, because this wasn't a victory yet. This was only the fire. And tomorrow, they would sort the ashes. Later that night, Sage sat on the hotel balcony with Red. The city lights blinked below them. How do you feel? He asked. She exhaled. Like I just demolished the stage we were supposed to get married on. You did. She looked at him. Thank you for standing beside me. He met her gaze. I'm not just beside you, Sage. I'm with you. Their eyes locked, the tension humming between them. She leaned in slightly, but before lips met, her phone buzzed. A message. Blocked number. You think it's over? You haven't even scratched the surface. Sage's blood ran cold. Red saw her face and read the message over her shoulder. Do you think it's Russet? He asked. Sage narrowed her eyes. No, she said. It's someone else. Someone who knows everything. And they just made this personal. Chapter 7. The mistress's mask cracks. Myrtle Sullivan was running out of faces to wear. 3 months ago, she had been the secret shadow behind Russet Greaves, the elegant other woman who thrived on discretion and control. Now, she was the subject of gossip columns, backhanded invitations, and quiet avoidance. Seattle society had turned. Her job at the firm was gone. Her apartment was under IRS lock. And the only person who had ever shielded her, Russet, was now crumbling faster than she was. But Myrtle had one thing left: secrets. And she wasn't going down without using them. She stood before the mirror in her new, modest apartment, fixing her lipstick with trembling hands. Sage had humiliated her in public, exposed her. Myrtle could still hear the polite applause after Russet walked out of the gala, the same man Myrtle had poured 12 years into. But tonight, she was going to strike back. Meanwhile, Sage adjusted the mic on her collar as she stood backstage at the Women of Seattle Future Fund panel. Her name was printed in bold across the banner, and her speech tonight was about reclaiming power through truth. Red stood beside her, reviewing a security alert from earlier. We got a ping, he said under his breath. Myrtle just walked in through the north entrance. Sage didn't flinch. She wouldn't miss a chance to act like a martyr. Red looked at her. Want me to stop her? Sage shook her head. No, let her watch. Front row. The ballroom was sleek, minimalist. Powerful women from across the city filled the rows, dressed in their sharpest looks. And in the second row, sunglasses perched high on her head like a crown, sat Myrtle Sullivan. She watched as Sage Langford took the stage, dressed in ivory and silver, looking ethereal. Her voice echoed across the hall, calm and cutting. They told me I was lucky to be loved by a man like him. They told me not to ask questions when he disappeared for hours, days. That love was a sacrifice. She paused. But love that demands silence isn't love. It's convenient, and I am no one's convenience anymore. The room erupted in applause. Myrtle clapped once, then stood up. Funny, she said loudly. You're preaching about truth, Sage, when you're still hiding behind your family name. The room fell silent. Sage slowly turned to face her. Myrtle, how thoughtful of you to come uninvited. Myrtle stepped closer. You think you're clean? You think because you cut Russet off, you're innocent? Security began to move, but Sage raised a hand. Let her speak, she said. Myrtle laughed bitterly. You knew what he was when you took him in. You just didn't care until the spotlight turned. You wore that marriage like a crown even when you were miserable. Sage walked off the platform, heels clicking. You're right, she said. I was miserable, and I let it destroy me. She stopped in front of Myrtle. But the difference between you and me is I woke up. You're still lying to yourself, Myrtle sneered. You think they care about your pain? They only care about your name. Sage stepped even closer. Then let me make it clear. She turned back to the audience. This woman, Myrtle Sullivan, used false documentation to embezzle funds from a nonprofit. She participated in the conspiracy to commit medical fraud. And she knowingly entered into a relationship with a man who forged legal contracts in my family's name. Gasps filled the room. Sage's voice didn't rise. It didn't need to. And I have the files to prove it. I won't be pressing charges yet. Because, unlike her, I believe in consequences that humiliate first and punish second. Security moved in. Myrtle panicked. You can't do this. You're just as fake as the rest of them. Sage smiled. Fake? No, Reborn? Absolutely. Myrtle was escorted out, and Sage returned to the stage. Now, she said, fixing the mic. Back to truth. Later that night, Russet slammed a glass against his kitchen counter, watching Myrtle scream at him through his phone. You told me she didn't have anything left. She wasn't supposed to, Russet snapped. She was supposed to disappear. Myrtle was hysterical. I got dragged out in front of donors, executives. Do you know what that means for me? Russet growled. This was your mess too. You wanted a seat at the table. You sat down knowing it was stolen. Myrtle screamed and hung up. Russet sat in the dark. For the first time in his life, he was truly, completely alone. At her apartment, Sage sat curled on the couch, a cup of tea in her hands. Red stood behind her, looking out at the city. That was a risk today, he said quietly. She was going to blow eventually, Sage replied. Better in front of witnesses. Red turned to her. Do you feel better? She thought for a long moment. No, she said, but I feel clearer, and that's a start. Red sat beside her. He's going to lash out. He has nothing left. Sage nodded. Let him. Everything he does now only proves my point. Red looked at her. What happens when this is all over? Sage leaned into him, resting her head on his shoulder. Then we stop surviving and start living. Chapter 8. A baby that was never mine. Sage stood at the threshold of Willow Creek Medical Center, a place that once held the promise of life. Now, it loomed like a mausoleum. 10 years ago, she walked through these doors clutching her stomach, believing she was carrying Russet's child, believing she was building a family. The doctors called it a miscarriage and natural loss, but Sage knew better now. This time, she wasn't here to grieve. She was here to uncover the truth. The records clerk was a silver-haired woman named Doris who looked like she'd seen everything and questioned nothing. You'll need to submit a request form, she said without looking up. Sage leaned forward, sliding a gold-embossed letter across the desk. This is a court-approved subpoena for the records from June 6, 2017. Patient, Sage Langford. Case number attached. Doris finally looked up. Her eyes lingered on the Langford name, then she nodded and buzzed open the internal records door. Down the hall, third room on the right. You've got 20 minutes. Sage walked into the file room, heart pounding. Red followed close behind, already pulling on gloves. You okay? He asked. Not even a little, she whispered. But I need this. They found her file quickly, a thick one, heavier than it should have been. Red flipped it open, scanning until he froze. Sage, he murmured, there are 2 entries here. 2, one for your miscarriage, and 1 from 2 days earlier. He handed her a sheet. It was a consultation summary signed by Dr. Eric Halliday. Patient was administered low-dose misoprostol for uterine sensitivity. Secondary agent recommended pending confirmation. Sage's eyes darkened. I never approved any medication. I never even met that doctor. Red flipped another page. There's a billing note. The prescription was picked up under an auxiliary contact. Name used, Myrtle Sullivan. The room spun. Sage gripped the table. She drugged me. Red pulled out his phone, snapping photos of every page. We can subpoena the pharmacy. Cross-reference the camera footage. If she signed for it, I want every name, Sage said, voice shaking. Every doctor who signed off, every nurse on duty, every transaction Russet touched. I want a wall of proof. You'll get it, Red said. But Sage, this is criminal. When this goes public, it won't just destroy them. It'll reopen everything you survived. She looked at him, tears brimming but unfallen. Good. Let them see what survival looks like. Across the city, Russet Greaves stood in a smoky bar, half drunk and spiraling. His apartment had been foreclosed. His bank accounts were frozen. Myrtle had vanished. His firm refused to return his calls. He was a ghost clinging to the last embers of relevance. And Sage had become untouchable. He watched a looped video on his phone of her panel speech, rewinding to the moment she called him a ladder climber. He smashed the phone on the bar. A man nearby winced. Easy, buddy. Russet ignored him. In his mind, Sage had turned the world against him. But worse than that, she had won, and he couldn't stand it. Back at Langford Tower, Sage met Top in the private conference room. She laid out the files Red had compiled. Top flipped through them in silence. This is enough to bury them, he said. It's not enough, Sage replied. They stole my child, lied, manipulated. Let me love a baby that wasn't mine. I raised Silver thinking he was my son. Her voice broke. And he never was. Top put a hand on her shoulder. We release this in stages, he said. Let the world choke on the truth one bite at a time. Sage nodded. I want Russet to feel what it means to have everything taken away. Slowly, Red visited the pharmacy 2 days later. Surveillance footage showed Myrtle arriving in sunglasses, signing the pickup sheet, and walking out with the package. He delivered the flash drive to Sage. She didn't say a word. She didn't need to. That night, Sage returned to the old nursery. It hadn't been touched in years. The crib still sat in the corner, untouched since she moved out. The mobile above it, tiny stars and moons, hung frozen in time. She stood there, letting the silence stretch. Red appeared in the doorway. I can wait outside. No, Sage said. Stay. He crossed the room and stood beside her. What do you want to do with all this? Donate it, she said. To a real mother, someone who didn't lose their child to monsters. Red placed a hand gently on her back. That's brave. She finally let a tear fall. This is the last time I cry over him. Russet opened his email that night to find a video file and a single line. You took everything from me. Let me return the favor. He clicked play. Footage of Myrtle, the clinic, the receipt, the signature. He dropped the laptop. A knock came at the door. He opened it to find two officers. Russet Greaves? Yes. You're being served. There's an investigation pending involving felony medical fraud and conspiracy. Russet's world stopped. Sage sat on her balcony that night, the wind tugging at her hair. Red joined her quietly. He got the notice? She asked. He did. Sage closed her eyes. There's just one thing left now. What's that? She opened her eyes. The fire returning. The proposal. The public one. I'm going to return the favor. Red tilted his head. A reverse proposal? She smiled. Not to accept. To humiliate. She turned to Red with a deep breath. I'm going to remind the world who he really is. And this time, I won't be the one walking away in shame. Chapter 9. Reverse proposal. Rain swept over Seattle in a slow, silver drizzle. The kind of rain that settled into your bones, whispering secrets in every drop. Sage Langford stood at the rooftop terrace of the Langford Arts Pavilion, a towering glass structure recently renamed in her honor. Tonight was a press event, a red carpet ceremony for a newly endowed scholarship fund under her name. But in Sage's world, everything had a double purpose, especially tonight. Because Russet Greaves had received an invitation, he would come. She knew he would, not just for the cameras, but for the illusion that he still had a chance at redemption. Men like him always thought they could charm their way back into the narrative. But tonight, Sage was holding the pen. Inside, the room shimmered with Art Deco lighting and bold crimson centerpieces. Sage descended the grand staircase, every inch of her styled to perfection in a fitted, sharp-shouldered black velvet gown, her hair in a sweeping braid down her back. Red met her at the bottom. He's here. Just walked in. Sage nodded. Let him simmer. I want him watching. Russet stood near the entrance, trying to project confidence in a suit that fit tighter than it should. His face was drawn. His eyes scanned the crowd and locked onto Sage. She didn't look back. Yet, Sage took the stage as the evening's keynote speaker. The cameras rolled. Flashbulbs burst like firecrackers. Thank you all for being here tonight, she began. We gathered to celebrate opportunity, the courage to rise after betrayal, and the resilience of truth. She paused, letting her words settle. When I started this fund, I was inspired by the belief that integrity matters more than legacy, that what we survive defines us more than what we inherit. She turned her gaze slowly to Russet. He was frozen, watching her, waiting. There was a man, Sage said, someone I once believed in. I thought he would be my partner, my family, my future. The audience leaned in. But that man wasn't a dream. He was a fraud, and I spent years trying to be enough for someone who never deserved a single part of me. Gasps rippled through the crowd. Tonight, Sage said, lifting a small velvet box from the podium, I'd like to return something that never belonged to me. She opened the box. Russet's engagement ring. Russet Greaves, she called, her voice cool and commanding. Would you join me? The audience turned to him. Cameras pivoted. Russet hesitated. Then, like a puppet with strings too tangled to resist, he walked up to the stage. He stood beside her, clearly confused. Sage handed him the box. This was never mine. It was a symbol of a lie, a contract signed with stolen ink, and I'm giving it back. A flashbulb captured the moment. Another headline was being born. Sage turned to the audience. I was proposed to under pretenses, manipulated, gaslit, betrayed, and yet, I stayed for 10 years thinking love meant endurance. But love should never cost your soul. The room was silent. So here's my proposal, she said, voice rising. To every woman who's ever been silenced, shamed, or sacrificed for someone else's ambition, take your voice back, walk off the stage, and leave them to explain the silence. She stepped away from the podium, heels echoing across the marble. Russet reached out. Sage, wait. She turned slowly. I waited for 10 years, she said. You can wait for the rest of your life. She walked past him, out the door, into the rain. Red followed her outside with an umbrella. You did it. Sage stood still for a moment, letting the drizzle kiss her cheeks. Not yet. But that was the beginning of the end. The world saw everything tonight, he said. You didn't just take back your power. You took back the narrative. She turned to him. And the rest? The investigations are proceeding. Arrest warrants are likely within the week. Myrtle's name is all over the documents. Sage smiled. Perfect. So what now? He asked. She looked up at the sky, the rain falling softly. Now, she whispered, we wait for the crash, and then we build something new. Red held the umbrella over her as they walked into the night. The ring box, empty, lay forgotten on the stage. Chapter 10. You married me for money, now I'm rich without you. The headlines hit like lightning. Greaves and Sullivan under federal investigation for medical fraud and embezzlement. Langford heiress breaks silence with reverse proposal bombshell. Seattle's power couple falls from grace. Sage Langford barely blinked. For once, the world was paying attention to truth, and she didn't have to scream to be heard. At Langford Tower, a war room had formed. Red coordinated with investigators, Top managed PR strategy, and Sage. She watched it all unfold like a seasoned general surveying a battlefield she had already conquered. Myrtle's been subpoenaed, Red reported. They have her bank records, phone logs, and the footage. It's airtight. What about Russet? Sage asked, her tone even. He's trying to cut a deal, but the prosecutors aren't biting. Sage leaned back in her chair. Good. Let him squirm. 2 days later, Russet Greaves stood in front of the courthouse in a wrinkled suit, cameras flashing. His expression had once been composed, calculated. Now it was gaunt, unshaven, desperate. A reporter shouted, Mr. Greaves, do you deny the allegations? He didn't answer, just pushed through the swarm, chased by the legacy he tried to steal. Inside, the prosecution's case was laid bare. Falsified medical documents, unauthorized prescriptions, embezzled charity funds, and calculated manipulation of Sage Langford's inheritance. Myrtle had fled. They found her in a motel outside Portland. She folded in less than 24 hours. Russet was alone. Sage watched the live coverage from her penthouse. Red sat beside her, silent. He's going to jail, he said at last. He deserves worse, Sage whispered. But is it enough? She turned to him. It's not about revenge anymore. It's about reclamation. I'm not just burning bridges, I'm rebuilding the shoreline. A week later, Sage was invited to speak at the Northwest Women's Justice Forum. She stood beneath the vaulted ceiling of the King County Civic Hall, staring out at a room filled with survivors, advocates, and change-makers. I was married to a man who weaponized love, who wrapped betrayal in silk and called it devotion, who took my name and tried to make it his ladder to power. She let the silence stretch. But the truth has teeth, and when it bites, it doesn't let go. Applause broke like a wave. Meanwhile, in a cold cell to floors beneath the courthouse, Russet sat on a metal cot, head in his hands. The deal had collapsed. Myrtle had turned over everything, and the public had chosen their side. Sage's side. He had climbed on her back for a decade. Now, he was alone with the consequences. His lawyer entered the room. They're offering 10 years, he said. Russet scoffed. I built everything she has. The lawyer didn't even flinch. No, she let you build beside her, and then she tore it down. Russet slammed his fist against the wall. The walls didn't care. Sage stood on the balcony of her childhood home, the Langford estate, the evening sun dipping behind the trees. Top joined her, 2 glasses of wine in hand. To the end, he offered. She clinked her glass to his. To the beginning, he smirked. Fair. You were right, she said. From the start. You had to live it to believe it, he replied. Red appeared in the doorway. Got a moment? She followed him inside. He handed her a leather-bound file. Inside were letters, handwritten, from the late Langford patriarch. She read in silence, tears threatening. My father suspected Ruby, she murmured. He tried to warn you, but she intercepted the letters, buried them. Sage held the pages close. This changes everything, she whispered. Red nodded. You have all the power now. She smiled faintly. Then let's use it. Russet's sentencing was scheduled for a Thursday. Sage didn't attend. She had no desire to watch a ghost fade into shackles. Instead, she walked barefoot along Elky Beach, the sea wind lifting her hair. Red joined her, their hands brushing occasionally, like the start of a song. Do you miss him? He asked. I miss who I thought he was, she said. But I'm not mourning a man. I'm mourning the years I gave away. He looked at her with quiet admiration. You have them back now, in a way. She turned to face him fully. No, she said. I have myself back. That's enough. She kissed him, soft, sure, unapologetic. And in that kiss was every vow she had never received. In the end, Russet was sentenced to 12 years with no parole. Myrtle served 5. Ruby vanished to Europe, her assets frozen. Sage Langford was named Seattle's Woman of the Year. She donated half her inheritance to building shelters for women escaping financial and emotional abuse. The rest? She invested in a publishing house that gave platforms to stories like hers. She never wore a ring again, but she never walked alone either. Red was beside her, not to complete her, but to walk with her. And as the autumn leaves painted the city gold, Sage stood beneath the Langford Pavilion sign, press flashing around her, heart steady in her chest. She had been reborn in betrayal, but she rose in truth, and this time, she was rich in everything that mattered. Epilogue. 1 year passed. Seattle had changed, but not as much as Sage Langford. She stood in the foyer of the newly built Aurora House, a transitional sanctuary for women starting over. It bore her mother's name. It was Sage's first personal project, her first real legacy. And today, it opened its doors. Laughter echoed down the polished halls as staff welcomed new residents. Volunteers handed out blankets and journals, and children raced across the garden behind the main wing. The house was warm, lived in, safe, just as Sage had always wanted to feel. Red approached from behind, holding 2 cups of coffee. "You've built something beautiful." Sage turned and smiled. "So did you." They walked together through the garden, the soft hum of spring around them. "How does it feel?" he asked. "Like I finally exhaled," she said. He looked at her, pride in his eyes. "You could run for office. The city practically worships you." "I don't want power anymore," she replied. "I want peace." Red chuckled. "You always did choose the harder thing." Sage sipped her coffee, pausing under a blooming magnolia tree. "Can I tell you something crazy? Please." "I don't think I was meant to love Russet. I think I was meant to survive him." Red took her hand gently. "You didn't just survive. You rewrote the ending." They stood there in silence, fingers intertwined, until a small girl from the house tugged on Sage's dress. "Miss Langford, we planted your flower. The one you said never gives up." Sage knelt to meet the girl's eyes. "You mean the daffodil? The one that grows even after snow?" The girl nodded proudly. "It's already blooming, just like you said." Sage hugged her. That night, they held a small celebration in the garden. There were fairy lights strung between trees, music drifting on the air, and paper lanterns ready for the sky. Red stood beside Sage as she lit her lantern. "What are you wishing for?" he asked. She smiled. "Nothing. I already have everything I need." They released it together. The lantern drifted up, catching a breeze, dancing with others. Red turned to her. "There's still one thing I haven't asked." Sage tilted her head. "What's that?" He pulled a velvet box from his jacket, not black, not dramatic, but soft cream. Inside, a ring with no diamonds, just a slim band of rose gold, etched with her initials inside. "This isn't a proposal," he said. "Not in the way you're thinking. It's a promise that I will never try to own your story. I just want to be part of it." Sage blinked back tears, then put it on my right hand. "The left is for battle. This one is for everything after." He slipped the ring onto her right ring finger. She kissed him. The crowd cheered, but in that moment, it was only them. Later, Sage stood alone by the tree. A breeze rustled the magnolia petals. In her heart, she heard her father's voice, her mother's laughter, the faint cry of a past version of herself saying goodbye. She closed her eyes, then opened them again. The future was waiting, and this time, it had her name on it.